This is section 23 of Mark Twain, The Complete Interviews. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Interview 23, Mark Twain's Ideas, a Talk with the Humorist. Baltimore American, November 29, 1884, page 4. Read by John Greenman.
"Yes, we have stood the test very well," said Mark Twain last night, as he sat behind the scenes in the Academy of Music concert hall, waiting for the great crowd that had come to hear him read get seated. "To be sure, whenever we would arrive in a town, there would be processions and torchlight parades, whether on our account or not I can't say, but they would be there. Yet the political excitement has not hurt us in regard to audiences. We were in places, too, where there was much excitement, and even after the thing was settled, the people did not seem to know what to do with their old campaign trumpery, and would get up parades for picnics and socials just to use it. But the crowd would come to us nevertheless."
Mr. Twain speaks in a slow, deliberate manner, almost with a drawl. He never seems hurried or excited, but quietly talks, as if he was finding the word to be used in his mental dictionary. Continuing, he said,
"It has been 17 years since I last appeared on the platform in this city. It was in a long hall. I can fully remember it, for I see the people sitting far down in front of me. I have been here since. Once I felt tired and like I wanted a rest. I came here. I got it. I stopped at a hotel. I have forgotten the name, but I stayed in my room all the time and in bed. There, tucked under the covers, I had terrapin, oysters, canvas-back ducks, and lived. No one saw me, no one knew I was here, except George Alfred Townsend. He was roaming about here, and I fell upon him. No, he stumbled upon me, for he found me in bed. Resting? Yes, resting. I don't like traveling. I would mind if I could take my family with me, but there are those blessed darlings, the children, and what a trouble children are when they travel. And the average American child, when he travels, generally makes himself known. Therefore, this is my last appearance on the platform."
The American representative smiled as he thought of the numerous stars now making their farewell tours, and the smile faded away to almost tears as he thought Mark Twain was to be added to this list. Mr. Clemens noticed the look, and quickly, as quickly as Mr. Twain ever allows his voice to be accelerated, said,
"Yes, I mean it. I was 49 years of age yesterday, and if I remain off the platform 17 years, put that to 49, and by that time nobody will want to hear me. I love the platform, and I would like to live on it, but I cannot be traveling about all the time. There is my family at home doing the lonesome. If I could settle down in New York, they could come in and stay there while I talked. Why, look how long a play runs in New York. I don't want such a big hall. I could talk in a small one, and I am sure there would be one man in it to hear me. Why have I got Mr. Cable with me? Well, I don't feel like taking the responsibility of giving the entire show. I want someone to help me. It is a great burden, this awful thought that you alone have to carry everything. Then I want company. Mr. Cable is company, good company. We need not talk all the time. You can be company with each other and not say a word. Sweethearts sometimes sit together a long time and don't say a word. Yet they are company for each other. Yes, the platform has a great fascination in regard to the way the audiences take the jokes. They say English people are slow to perceive a joke, but you get a large audience before you, why, they catch on to the joke before you have half told it. Yet you talk to 4 or 5 Englishmen and tell them a funny story. When you get through, they'll never smile, but next day they'll laugh. Fact. What is the difference between the crowd and the select party? Oh, I think it is a sort of sympathy with the crowd. One laughs, the others laugh with him, not with the fear they have to digest the fun. I was sitting one night in the Savage Club in London with Tom Hood, editor of Fun, and 1 or 2 others. I told them a funny story, and not one laughed. Next day I met Hood in the club, and he came up to me and said, "Twain, tell that funny story you told last night to my friends here." I told it. Hood laughed loud and long. The other men near smiled. Will you believe it? I told Hood that story 5 times, and each time he laughed heartier than the preceding time, and the last time I thought he would die. Yet those who heard it for the first time never smiled. They wanted it to soak in. How will F. C. Bernard, the editor of Punch, do here on his lecture tour? If I put on a bright flaming red scarf and went out on the platform, everybody would look at that scarf. They would have their thoughts distracted by it. They would forget to look at it. Mr. Bernard speaks very broad English. How they can call it good solid English I can't understand. I once heard him give a reading, when he described a yachting party giving imitation of the ladies and their efforts to eat off the swinging table. It was very funny, and I enjoyed it. But his pronunciation was so pronounced to me that I noticed it all the time. When Toole came over here he asked me about it. I told him plainly that I did not think his broad English pronunciation would suit the American people. If he would do the red scarf act and come before the people, I do not think he would succeed. We shall see in regard to Mr. Bernard. One day I was talking to George Augustus Sala in London. In fact, he was having a heated discussion in regard to Americans with a friend. I spoke up and defended my countrymen. He quoted as examples the words cow and now as spoken in one part of the United States with a broad sound. I told him that that pronunciation was only common in one part of our country, and that because it was originally settled by Englishmen. What they are pleased to call Americanisms originally came from England, and it is unjust to us to lay all the vulgar coarse things at our door. To prove to Mr. Sala that I was right, I said, "Now I'll call your attention in a few minutes to yourself, for you will use the very pronunciation of the words cow and now exactly as he had said the Americans used the word." Mr. Cable, who reads with Mr. Twain, had been exploring the wings, and when it was time for Mr. Twain to go on, Mr. Cable remarked, "Look out for the wall as you go in, and don't brush against it, or you'll get whitewash all over you." "They will have to look out for their whitewash," replied Mr. Twain in his droll manner. "I will take care of myself." While Mark Twain and Cable were entertaining the American representative behind the scenes, the concert hall was rapidly filling up, and when Mr. Cable appeared to read his first selection,
one from Dr. Sevier, Narcisse and John and Mary Richling. The house was crowded, every seat being occupied. Messrs. Twain and Cable read alternately, the latter starting off. He was warmly received, and throughout the evening his selections were received with close attention and applause. He read largely from Dr. Sevier, the best selection being Mary's Night Ride, which showed his descriptive powers to the best advantage. He also sang a number of Creole songs excellently. Mr. Twain, however, seemed to be the star. His appearance was the signal for loud applause, and the people laughed at everything he said. Mr. Twain was funny last night. His Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, from his latest work, was his first reading. It was a happy selection, and made him at home at once with the audience. To those who had read his Tramp Abroad, the tragic tale of the fishwife and a trying situation taken from it hardly recognized them. For Mr. Twain told them in his inimitable manner, and gave almost a new reading to them. He was in the midst of a trying situation when there was a rustle in the gallery. It grew louder and louder until the sounds of hustling feet and women's dresses were heard coming down the stairway. Mr. Twain stopped, and taking out his watch said, "Time to catch a train, I expect." Just then the form of the principal of a female college near the city appeared at the south doorway, and led the troop of 30 or 40 girls across the hall, right in front of the stage. The aisle divides the audience equally, and the people applauded terrifically. Mr. Twain looked bored. He was bored, and as the form of the female assistant disappeared, Mr. Twain resumed, "You can't always tell the customs of the country. In Boston once it was customary for the people to catch the train at 9:05 o'clock. One night I was reading there, and at that hour everybody in the hall got up and left. I did not know of this tonight. How can one tell of these things?" He finished the story. He was very successful with his short story, which closed the program, and its rendition so wrought up a lady in the audience that when the denouement came she shouted, "Oh!" Mr. Twain and Mr. Cable read at the matinee today, and tonight they give their farewell and retire for good. So Mr. Twain says. There will be a change of bill. End of interview 23, read by John Greenman.